Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we will talk about a truly inspiring figure, Dr. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. He was a great leader, social reformer, and the architect of the Indian Constitution. His story is one of struggle, hard work, and success. He dedicated his life to fighting for equality, education, and justice for all. Many people know him as the father of the Indian Constitution, but his journey was not easy. He faced discrimination, poverty, and many challenges. Yet, he never gave up. His life teaches us that with education, courage, and determination, we can achieve anything. In this video, we will explore his early life, education, struggles, and great achievements in a simple and easy way. Stay with us till the end to learn how Dr. Ambedkar changed history and inspired millions. Part 2. Early Life and Struggles. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was born on April 14, 1891, in Mahau, Madhya Pradesh, India. He was born into a poor family belonging to the Dalit community. At that time, untouchability was a big problem in India, and Dalits were treated unfairly. Even as a child, Ambedkar faced discrimination. In school, he was not allowed to sit with other students. He could not drink water from the same pot as others. Teachers and classmates treated him badly just because of his caste. But this did not stop him. Despite all the difficulties, he had a strong desire to learn. His father, Ramji Sakpal, was in the British Army and understood the value of education. He encouraged young Bhimrao to study hard and never give up. Ambedkar's intelligence was clear from a young age. He loved reading books and learning new things. But society made his life very difficult. He had to face insults, disrespect, and injustice every day. Instead of losing hope, he decided to fight back with knowledge. He understood that education was the key to change. He believed that if he became educated, he could change not only his life, but also the lives of millions. Part 3. Education, the key to change. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar knew that education was his only weapon against discrimination. But getting an education was not easy for a Dalit boy in those times. He had to face many struggles just to attend school. School days, the pain of untouchability. As a child, Ambedkar studied at a government school. But unlike other students, he was not treated equally. He was not allowed to sit inside the classroom with upper caste students. He had to sit on the floor, away from others. Even drinking water was a struggle. If he wanted water, he could not touch the pot himself. A teacher or peon had to pour water for him from a distance. Sometimes there was no one to give him water, and he had to remain thirsty for the entire day. But young Bhimrao never let these things break him. Instead of giving up, he worked even harder. He became one of the best students in the class. His intelligence and dedication impressed some teachers who helped him continue his education. College education, a rare opportunity for Dalits. After completing school, Ambedkar went to Elphinstone College in Mumbai. This was a big achievement because at that time, very few Dalits could study in colleges. But the challenges did not stop. Even in college, people looked down on him because of his caste. Many refused to sit with him or even talk to him. But he never let their hatred stop him. He knew that knowledge was power, and he focused only on his studies. His hard work paid off, and he became one of the first Dalits in India to graduate from college. His success caught the attention of Sayajirao Gaikwad, the ruler of Baroda. Impressed by his intelligence, Gaikwad gave him a scholarship to study abroad. This was a golden opportunity, and Ambedkar grabbed it with both hands. higher studies in America and England. With the scholarship, Ambedkar traveled to the United States in 1913 to study at Columbia University in New York. This was a completely different world for him. Unlike India, there was no caste discrimination in America. For the first time in his life, he felt free and respected. He could sit anywhere, drink water freely, and talk to anyone without being judged. At Columbia University, Ambedkar worked day and night. He studied subjects like economics, law, and political science. In just 2 years, he completed his master's degree. His thesis was titled The Problem of the Rupee, which later became a very important document for India's financial system. After finishing his studies in America, he moved to London, England, where he studied law at the London School of Economics. He became a barrister, lawyer, making him one of the most educated Indians of his time. Returning to India, a new mission begins. In 1923, after years of education, Ambedkar returned to India. He now had a powerful weapon, knowledge. He could have chosen a comfortable life, working as a lawyer or professor. But he had a bigger mission, to fight against untouchability, to bring justice and equality, to educate and uplift Dalits. He knew that millions of people in India were suffering just like he had suffered as a child. He decided to dedicate his life to changing society and fighting for their rights. Part 4. The Fight Against Untouchability. A leader is born. After returning to India, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar saw that nothing had changed. Discrimination was everywhere. Dalits were still treated as untouchables, denied basic rights, and forced to live in poverty. He had studied in the best universities in the world, but in his own country, he was still treated as an outsider. This was the moment when he made a big decision. He realized that education alone was not enough. To bring real change, he had to fight against injustice. He had to become a leader, a voice for the voiceless. Becoming a voice for the oppressed, Ambedkar started speaking out against untouchability. He gave powerful speeches, wrote articles, and met leaders to demand equal rights for Dalits. But the upper caste society did not want change. They opposed him, insulted him, and even tried to stop him. But Ambedkar was not afraid. He had faced discrimination since childhood, and now he was ready to challenge it. He started organizing Dalit communities, encouraging them to stand up for their rights. He told them, "Do not accept injustice. Fight for education and equality. Believe in yourself." This was a revolutionary idea at that time. For centuries, Dalits were told they were inferior, but Ambedkar told them they were equal. The Mahad Satyagraha, a historic protest. One of his first big fights was the Mahad Satyagraha in 1927. In those days, Dalits were not allowed to drink water from public wells and tanks. Even though the law said everyone had the right to drink water, upper caste people did not allow Dalits to use it. Ambedkar decided to challenge this injustice. He led thousands of Dalits to Chowdar Tank in Mahad, Maharashtra. They marched together and drank water from the tank, a simple act, but a powerful message. The upper caste people were furious. They attacked the Dalits, but Ambedkar did not back down. He told his people, "We are not less than anyone. We have the right to live with dignity." This was one of the first major protests against caste discrimination in India. It showed that Dalits were no longer willing to suffer in silence. The Temple Entry Movement. In those days, Dalits were not allowed to enter Hindu temples. Even though they believed in the same gods, They were treated as outsiders. Ambedkar started the temple entry movement, where Dalits peacefully entered temples to demand their rights. This movement shook society and forced people to think about the unfair treatment of Dalits. The message was clear. No one should be denied the right to worship. Religion should not be used to divide people. Every Indian is equal, regardless of caste. The power of education. Schools for Dalits. Ambedkar knew that education was the most powerful tool for change. If Dalits remained uneducated, they would always be oppressed. He started opening schools and colleges to help Dalits and other marginalized communities get an education. He told them, "You may have nothing today, but if you have education, you have the power to change your future." Thanks to his efforts, thousands of Dalit children were able to attend school for the first time, challenging the Hindu caste system. Ambedkar strongly opposed the caste system. He believed that a country cannot progress if millions of its people are treated as inferior. He started writing books and giving speeches on caste discrimination. His most famous work, Annihilation of Caste, criticized the unfair social system and called for equality. Many traditional leaders were angry with him, but Ambedkar did not care. He wanted justice, not approval. A new hope for millions. By the 1930s, Ambedkar had become the most powerful Dalit leader in India. People from all over the country respected him, followed him, and saw him as their savior. But his mission was far from over. The biggest challenge was yet to come. Part 5. The Fight for Political Rights, a Clash of Ideas. By the 1930s, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had become the undisputed leader of Dalits. His voice was powerful, and his ideas were revolutionary. But he knew that real change could only come through political power. Without a voice in government, Dalits would always remain weak. He wanted Dalits to have their own political representation, their own leaders who could fight for their rights. This idea led to one of the biggest clashes in Indian history, Ambedkar versus Mahatma Gandhi. Demand for separate electoral rights. At that time, British India was deciding the future of elections. The British government was discussing how different communities, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, would be represented in the government. Ambedkar demanded a separate electorate for Dalits. This meant that Dalits would get their own reserved seats in elections, and only Dalits could vote for Dalit candidates. This way, Dalits could choose leaders who truly understood their struggles. The British government agreed with Ambedkar and announced the Communal Award in 1932, giving Dalits a separate electorate. This was a huge victory for Dalits, but it also sparked a major conflict. Mahatma Gandhi strongly opposed the idea. He believed that separate electorates would divide Hindu society forever. He wanted Dalits to remain within the Hindu fold and not have a separate political identity. The Pune Pact, a tough decision. To protest the separate electorates, Gandhi went on a hunger strike in Pune's Yerwada jail. He declared that he would fast unto death unless Ambedkar withdrew his demand. This put Ambedkar in a difficult position. On one hand, he wanted Dalits to have their own political power. On the other hand, if Gandhi died, Ambedkar would be blamed for dividing India. After long negotiations, Ambedkar and Gandhi signed the Pune Pact in 1932. According to this agreement, Dalits would not have a separate electorate, but they would get reserved seats in general elections. The number of reserved seats for Dalits in legislatures would be increased. Ambedkar was not happy with the compromise, but he had no choice. The Pune Pact became a landmark agreement in Indian history, building a political movement. Although the Pune Pact was a setback, Ambedkar did not stop. He realized that Dalits needed a strong political party to represent their rights. So he founded the Independent Labour Party, ILP, in 1936. This party fought for Dalit rights, workers' rights, land reforms. He also started writing and giving powerful speeches. His book, Annihilation of Caste, became one of the most radical writings on caste discrimination. In this book, Ambedkar criticized Hindu religious practices that justified untouchability. His words were clear. Caste is a disease that must be destroyed. Hindu society must reform or collapse. Equality is a birthright, not a gift. These ideas were too bold for many people. Even some social reformers found his views extreme. But Ambedkar did not care. He knew that change would not come without challenging old beliefs. World War II and a new opportunity. During World War II, 1939 to 1945, the British government made new political plans for India. They promised more self-rule, and Ambedkar saw this as another chance to fight for Dalit rights. In 1942, he was appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council as the Labor Minister. This was a big achievement because, for the first time, a Dalit leader had an important position in the government. As Labor Minister, Ambedkar introduced laws to protect workers, minimum wages for laborers, better working conditions. These reforms helped millions of poor people in India, not just Dalits. But Ambedkar was not satisfied. He wanted something bigger, a new India where no one would be discriminated against. And soon he would get the opportunity to shape the future of India forever. The road to the Indian Constitution. As India moved closer to independence, a new challenge awaited Ambedkar. He was about to take on the most important role of his life, the father of the Indian Constitution. Part 6. Architect of the Indian Constitution, a vision for equality. By the late 1940s, India was on the verge of independence. But there was a big question. How would the new India be governed? Who would write the rules for the nation? The answer was clear. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee. On August 15, 1947, India gained independence. The country was free, but it needed a strong legal foundation. A team was formed to write the Constitution of India, and Ambedkar was chosen as the chairman of the drafting committee. Why was he chosen? Because he was an expert in law and governance, a fearless leader who fought for equality, a visionary who wanted a just and fair India. Ambedkar saw this as his greatest opportunity to create a country where everyone, Dalits, women, minorities, would have equal rights. Creating a new India, Ambedkar's key. Contributions. Ambedkar worked tirelessly for almost 3 years to draft the Constitution. He studied the laws of different countries and picked the best ideas. But his focus was clear: justice and equality. Here are some of his most important contributions. Abolition of untouchability. He made sure that the Constitution banned untouchability forever. No one could discriminate against Dalits. This was his biggest victory: fundamental rights for all. He ensured that every Indian had the right to freedom, equality, and protection from discrimination. Reservations for Dalits and backward classes. To correct historical injustices, he introduced reservations in education, jobs, and politics. This was not to create division, but to give the oppressed a fair chance. Rights for women. Ambedkar was one of the first leaders to fight for women's rights. He believed that a country could not progress if women were not treated equally. Democracy and social justice. He designed the political system of India, ensuring that power would not remain in the hands of a few. Every citizen had a say in the government. This was not just a document, it was Ambedkar's dream of a fair and just society. The Constitution is born finally. On November 26, 1949, the Indian Constitution was completed. It was officially adopted on January 26, 1950. India had now become a democratic republic. This was Ambedkar's greatest gift to the nation. He had written the longest and most detailed constitution in the world, ensuring that no one in India would ever be treated as untouchable again. But even after this massive achievement, Ambedkar was not satisfied. He knew that laws alone could not change society. He believed that people needed to change their mindset too. Disillusionment with Hinduism, a search for a new path. Even after the Constitution, discrimination against Dalits continued. Ambedkar was deeply disappointed. He felt that Hindu society would never truly accept Dalits as equals. So he began searching for a new spiritual path, one that believed in equality and justice. After studying many religions, he found his answer in Buddhism. He saw Buddhism as a religion of reason, equality, and peace. He started preparing for a historic decision that would change the lives of millions. Part 7. Embracing Buddhism, a new hope for equality. Ambedkar realized that laws alone could not change people's hearts. Society needed a spiritual revolution. He wanted Dalits to live with dignity, free from oppression. And for this, he made a historic decision to convert to Buddhism. Why did Ambedkar reject Hinduism? Ambedkar had been critical of the Hindu caste system throughout his life. He had tried to reform it, but nothing changed. Dalits were still treated as untouchables. He believed that Hinduism justified caste discrimination. Dalits would never be treated as equals within the Hindu system. Only a new religion could offer true freedom. After years of study, he found that Buddhism was the answer. It was a religion based on equality, no caste system, reason, no blind rituals, compassion, everyone is respected. For Ambedkar, this was not just a religious change, it was a movement for social justice. The historic conversion, 1956. On October 14, 1956, Ambedkar took a bold step. In Nagpur, in front of 500,000 followers, he officially converted to Buddhism. He took 22 vows, rejecting Hindu gods and rituals, caste-based discrimination, superstitions, and blind faith. Instead, he accepted the teachings of Gautama Buddha, the path of wisdom, morality, and meditation, a life of equality and human dignity. After taking his vows, Ambedkar personally converted thousands of his followers to Buddhism. This was the biggest mass conversion in Indian history. This moment was not just about religion, it was about reclaiming self-respect. Dalits were no longer untouchables, they were Buddhists, free from oppression. Ambedkar's final message to the nation. Even after this historic event, Ambedkar did not stop working. He wanted to spread Buddhism across India. He started writing his last book, The Buddha and His Dhamma, explaining Buddhist teachings in simple language. His final message to the people was clear: educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Unite. Social change comes through collective action. Fight for justice. Never accept inequality. He warned that if caste discrimination continued, India's democracy would fail. He urged Dalits to stay strong and never return to the Hindu caste system. The end of a legend, Ambedkar's passing. On December 6, 1956, just weeks after his conversion, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar passed away in his sleep. India had lost one of its greatest revolutionaries. His death was a great loss, but his legacy lives on. Today, millions of Dalits and other oppressed people continue to follow his path of education, self-respect, and justice. Part 8. The Legacy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a revolutionary who changed India. Ambedkar's impact on India. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar transformed India in many ways. His work did not just help Dalits. It shaped the entire nation. He gave India its constitution, the foundation of democracy and equality. He fought for social justice, ensuring Dalits, women, and minorities got equal rights. He reformed education, encouraging knowledge and self-improvement. He empowered the working class, introducing labor laws and economic policies. He inspired a new religious movement, leading millions towards Buddhism. Because of him, untouchability is illegal in India today. People from all backgrounds now have access to education, jobs, and political rights. He changed the way people think about justice and equality. Ambedkar's influence today. Even after his passing, his ideas continue to inspire millions. His birthday, April 14th, is celebrated as Ambedkar Jayanti across India. His statue stands in parliaments, universities, and public spaces as a symbol of justice. The Dalit movement continues to grow, fighting against discrimination and inequality. Many people follow his Buddhist teachings and his vision for an equal society. Even outside India, Ambedkar is recognized worldwide as a symbol of human rights and democracy. Dr. Ambedkar's story teaches us a powerful lesson. Never accept injustice. Education is the key to freedom. Change begins with courage. Equality is not a dream. It is a right. His words still guide us today. I measure the progress of a community by the degree of progress which women have achieved. Be educated, be organized, be agitated. Ambedkar did not just fight for Dalits. He fought for every Indian to live with dignity. His legacy reminds us that change is possible, but we must work for it. Conclusion. A leader who lives forever. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar may not be with us today, but his ideas, his teachings, and his spirit will never die. He gave his entire life for the betterment of society, and it is our responsibility to continue his mission. If we truly want to honor him, we must. Fight against discrimination in any form. Educate ourselves and others. Stand up for what is right. Ambedkar did not just give us a constitution, he gave us a vision for a better world. It is up to us to make that vision a reality. That's the end of today's story. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.